Wheelies. Am I being silly? I'm being silly, aren't I? Greetings, distinguished followers, chosen chimp here, poking my finger in cyber history once again and closing the book on these chaps, the late cyber faction Wheelies. So I promised that I would delve into some expanded media regarding these guys. After all, I did that with the Cyber Telosians and that was fun, but little did I realise that it would be a lot trickier this time around. You see, this isn't the most iconic of cyber design, and they did reappear in certain points of Doctor Who expanded media, but kind of not at the same time. And that is a story all too familiar with Cybermen. Them being wrong on things, which is fine, no need to get hung up on it. When I made my last Cyberman Wheelies video, one of my most evil subscribers brought my attention to this article written by Gav/The Mind Robber, the same person involved in the Dalek 63 to 88 channel. It's a superb breakdown of how photo shoots for the Radio Times did an amazing job of getting the Cybermen wrong in numerous different ways, and I encourage you all to take a look at it, link in the description. It highlights just one of the many examples of how individual Cyberman design and how the nuances of that design should probably just be taken with a pinch of salt. I mean, how do you define the Wheelies beside the appearance? I mean, yes, it did have a voice of its own, albeit one that changes slightly for a scene, but other than that, the only resource that defines this particular type of Cybermen as having a legacy unto its own is the David Banks timeline, as read in the Cyberman book and heard in the archive tapes. And for the purposes of this video and our sanity, I am actually going to encourage you to ignore it. I know, and just one video ago I was riding on its back. But here's the thing, when I began researching for this project I quickly discovered a pattern. The first thing I discovered was that the late cyber faction, My Wheelies, featured on the cover of a 1997 novel Illegal Alien, written by Mike Tucker and Robert Parry. It's a 7th Doctor story which is supposedly meant to be set after Survival, as it was meant to be made for Classic Series 27, the series that never was. Despite the fact that it was made about a decade after the Sylvester McCoy era, the continuity is pretty on point, with loads of references to the 7th Doctor episodes. It even includes Ace recognising the Cybermen from her encounter in the Silver Nemesis. And at the end of this book, you find out there's a bunch of Cybermen hiding in the sewers in London, which is a kind of precursor to the events of the invasion. I'm picking up the facts as I find them here, having not read the book myself. But it seems to me that this is fully entrenched in the all Cybermen look the same philosophy that ran along classic Doctor Who on TV. With the Neomorphs on one side and the Cyber faction in the other, I'm going to call this Wheelie's appearance on the front cover a purely aesthetic idea just for the cover. When they reprinted this book in 2014, they replaced that design with a Cybus model. How disrespectful. And so on so forth. The appearance of this design has also been preserved by Big Finish, and fairly recently, in the form of the 2022 Silver and Ice Anthology, or more specifically, the 2-part Cyberman story in that package, A Bad Day in Tinseltown. Like most of the Big Finish plugs that they publish on YouTube, you get a set of cool visuals as part of the trailer, and there he is, look, there's your man, with the voice of a Cyber Telosian. And then he turns into a Neomorph, which I'm not sure if that happens in the actual story, but it's more appropriate because it's a Sylvester McCoy adventure. Again, like the Illegal Alien book, it gives credence to the fact that this is purely a design choice just to have a cool looking Cyberman on the cover of something. The legacy of an actual Wheelie doesn't exist in any tangible form, and why would it? I mean, Dan Starkey, the person that wrote this story, it wasn't his job to trawl through decades and decades of Doctor Who mythology and dig into the finer points to create a tangible whole. He's just there to write a good Doctor Who story. As much as I love it, I understand why the David Banks timeline is largely ignored. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's a brilliant idea, but it is just kind of a blip in how Cybermen were perceived and written over the ages. So here we go. This guy, whenever you see him, he's just a design choice, and that's the end of that. Particularly in the case of Big Finish Audio, even if it has a wheelie on the cover, it's not likely that it's going to replicate that once-in-a-lifetime voice that changes for a scene. And Big Finish also made at least one other Cyberman story with a picture of the Wheelies on the cover, Blood and Steel, which combines two components of Doctor Who that I know virtually nothing about yet, and that is Bernice Summerfield and the Doctor Unbound. I know who James Goss is though. I nagged him once when I was making my Ensign Mystery video a couple of years back. Nice guy. Anyway, the Willkommen story and its visuals combine all kinds of iconic classic Cybermen things in a very interesting way. Again, you want to be checking out the trailer on YouTube to get some examples of that. You got the Tomb of the Cybermen icon reimagined as a Nazi flag, and a wheel in space Cyberman on a wartime propaganda poster. You've also got the classic early cyber faction design. The voice used throughout is the classic Cybus Nicholas Briggs voice, which is used in pretty much every Big Finish Doctor Who audio. So with Bernice Summerfield and the Doctor Unbound collaborating in wartime Berlin that also happens to be overrun by Cybermen, then yep, you can bet the wheelie on the cover and on the propaganda poster is just a visual aid. The emphasis of the story itself is more on the themes of fascism and conformity, and this incarnation of the Doctor getting angry and vowing vengeance and pain. The Doctor swearing vengeance. That's pretty dark. Speaking of dark, you know, as a Doctor Who YouTuber, I sometimes come across something during my research that's a little less pleasant than I hoped for. And yeah, this was definitely one of those examples. I don't know how somebody can create something this messed up. This was a little too intense, even for me. This was written by Adam Hargreaves, who is the son of Roger Hargreaves, so it's not even a knockoff, but actual canon to be recognised within the bigger mythology of the Mr. Men. In this story, William Hartnell's Doctor realises his granddaughter is missing, and on searching, finds that the Cybermen have orchestrated a brand new invasion of the United Kingdom, perhaps their deadliest and most terrifying one yet. This incarnation has some distinct characteristics of the Wheely Cybermen, aside of course from the fact that they look like small silver potatoes. The Doctor defeats this invasion threat by rebuilding Susan's radio to make dead annoying noises. The Cybermen have a dance, and the Earth is saved. The reading age is 3 to 7.
Yes.
You know, I gotta hand it to this Mr. Men adaptation of Doctor Who. There is one scene where the Wheely Cybermen shoot the Doctor with lasers, and they actually had lasers in the wheel in space. So in terms of continuity with the original Wheely design, there's, you know, I had to tie it in some kind of stupid intellectual fashion, didn't I? No, it's a cool book, Mr. Men Erase. And as fun as it would be to end the video on that note, I've got to mention one more pit stop because, well, it's just cool. I mean, any excuse to talk about the supremacy of the Cybermen comic, am I right? Created in 2016, it marked the 50th anniversary of Cybermen and featured every Doctor, almost every Cyberman, and a wealth of really cool new designs to boot. I love some of these. This here is the kind of zenith of Cybermen design, and yep, that one is also cool, and look what they did to K9. The Cybermen align themselves with Rassilon the Tit, to rewrite the entirety of history to create a new paradigm of Time Lord and Cyberman civilization. Obviously, the first order of business is to compromise the Doctor at every single one of his regenerations. And because of that, you get some really cool nods to certain moments in classic TV, except now that they've been historically altered by Cybermen intervention. By the way, when I was researching this particular bit of media, it was only natural that I was going to try and obtain every issue, and I discovered that there was a 2016 promotional Comic-Con prequel type thing. Quite hard to find. In this you get a little more bang for your buck because you find out how the Cybermen compromised Doctors 1 to 8.5. Observe number 2 doing that famous speech in the moon base where he says, "There are some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things. Things which act against everything we believe in. They must be like us." See, he's been had. History has changed, which might explain this. Jump to issue 3 of the main comic where the 12th Doctor has painful visions of history rewriting itself. And look, there they are. Not the Telosians as originally seen in the moon base, but the Wheelies instead, because. That's just what Wheelies do, apparently. And it's only fitting that this is due to a plan that Rassilon has orchestrated because... Come on guys, I know you can do it. Come on. I'll give you 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. It's because he's in the wheel in space. Yeah, same dude. Go figure. Also worthy of note is the variant cover of issue 3, which features the design of the Wheelies on the front. Wait a minute. You're welcome, everyone. A video about absolutely nothing. Explains nothing. Tells you nothing. No conclusion. Rubbish. Terrible. Terrible content. Other than the fact that the Wheelies actually really are the lost Cybermen, even in their own mythology. They don't really know what they are. Nobody else seems to know what they are either. And I think that's kind of fitting because as we learned in multiple stories and through multiple bits of media, no matter what they are, that the Cybermen are largely a product of their environment. Each type of Cyberman is a different breed of cat because of the circumstances that gave rise to that particular type of Cyberman. And so we get all these different designs that when you really want to canonize it, when you really want to inject it into the mythology of what Cybermen were and how they adapt and how they evolve in various locations, are all legit in some shape or form. They're all valid, they all matter, they all have some kind of history onto their own. And you know what's fun? Is not knowing what that history is, because then you can build your own in your own head. And I think if there's anything to be taken away from this, it's that. So, yeah, Wheelies, thanks for the experience. And there you go, folks, but closed on those guys. Next stop, Planet 14. But not just yet. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break from Cybermen. And here's why. There are lots of fun things to cover in Doctor Who, and time and resource is the only thing stopping me from doing more of that. But there is a way that you guys can help me, and that is by supporting me on Patreon. For just £1 a month, you can help me grow this channel and make it the best that it can be, with even more ridiculous Doctor Who related content for you to enjoy. As I will remind you all every time without fail, there is no pressure for you to donate, none whatsoever. But I will say this much, as soon as I hit 50 Patreons, I will begin a series of deep dive Dalek videos, starting with the one where it all began. If you like the sound of that, visit patreon.com/chosenchimp and become a distinguished follower today. If you have done that already, then you are awesome and thank you very much. In the meantime, this chimp has been chosen for cyber conversion. Have a good one.